Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Second week of our Supercoach installment. This week is a pretty special week. We've got our team reveal very, very early. Me and Jesse have already said multiple times this will be the first of many, many teams that we do make. But just wanted to let you guys see what we're up to, what pages we're on when it comes to selecting our teams, our strategies, our mind frames. First of all, just a massive thank you as well for everyone who listened to the last week's episode. It's been producing some pretty good numbers for us. So really, really happy with that and happy for your support. One thing I'll ask as a favor, when you do watch or listen to this episode, if it's either on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please just hit that follow button and that ratings button. Just give us 5 out of 5 stars if you can. It does go a long, long way of helping grow the page and growing the channel. So really do appreciate everyone out there who's listening to both myself and Jesse. Jesse, it's been a week since your debut, and weren't happy with how your technology went. I know that, but I think you were great on. So technically, it's debut. I'm going to say it's a new season, so I'm going to give you another debut run.
All right, no, I appreciate that. No, I'm not very technologically illiterate, I suppose you could call it, but bit of a few hiccups so far this afternoon, but we'll just try and kick on. Hopefully the audio is a bit better than last time, and get it going.
I don't know if it's you. Just you've already got people spinning in the web with just how good you have been at Supercoach, but I had multiple people actually message the page and say, you know what, I actually think it worked in his favor because we came out and said early on that you're not great with technology, and then a bit of audio issues happened, and then people just didn't even care. They said, "Nah, it's all good." Like you made it. It was very personable. It was very approachable to hear someone else have some issues in the past. So, look, I don't know how you've managed to spin this, but it's actually worked in your favor. So well done.
That's a bit of a disclaimer. You put it out there that things will probably go wrong, and when they do, no one's mad.
Very good. Look, guys, what we're going to do this episode, I'm going to go through my team first because I am not the professional when it comes to Supercoach. I am not the Supercoach whiz. I did not finish in the top 15 in 2023. That is all Jesse. So I'm going to do mine. Jesse's then going to come in, probably criticize the absolute shit out of my side, ask me why I've done this, why I've done that. But you know what? Sneak preview, we have looked at each other's sides, and there's a few players there that are similar. So it gives me a little bit of confidence, and then I won't do this vice versa with Jesse. All I'll probably do is come at it with more of a footy logic and just say maybe my bits and pieces on some players as well. So we're going to do once again a slideshow. If you did listen to our last episode with the League of Inches crew, we went through the jerseys and did that slideshow, which I've been told worked really well with the viewers able to watch what we were doing. So a bit easier to listen to the podcast version, obviously, as well with this, but there is a YouTube and you can see our team on the screen. So here we go. I am up first. I've made it so a little bit stretched out, which does look a little bit funny, but I just thought it makes it a bit easier to actually see the figures when it comes to the dollar signs and the names and things like that. So I'll start at the top. Obviously, hookers, everyone's talking about Harry Grant, and on our episode last week, we spoke about the other options just to free up a little bit more cash to play with a few things and see what we've done. I've decided to go that option. I've looked at the Melbourne Storm opening draw, and as I think we mentioned last week, I'm a bit scared to touch really any Storm players for the first probably five rounds or so, just to see how they are going and wait for their draw to open up a little bit. So I've gone Reece Robson as my hooker, and I've gone Jaden Brayley as my bench hooker, which I think 95% of teams will have Jaden Brayley at least on the bench for their sides. My front row, I have gone for Payne Haas, who I just think is an absolute must to start this year, 2024 Supercoach. I've gone Flegler as my second choice. The more I think about Flegler, the more I love him, and I feel like I need to start with him in that side. I think his minutes will increase, and I think he's going to the Dolphins, and he'll be that main guy alongside Tom Gilbert to really lead this forward pack into the future, and they'll be starting this year. My bench forwards are Fletcher Baker for the Broncos, who have just moved up there from the Roosters. I think with Flegler going, that should increase his minutes. That's sort of the first guy I'm not 100% on yet. I could easily change that. And Viliami Fafita is my second choice, who I think just there's been so much talk about in the last couple of years. I just think he has to nail down a bench spot. And if he can do that, he's at bottom dollar. He should be able to get us some Price rises, fingers crossed, and he also has the duel, which I really like as well. My second row, I've actually gone the mid-tier options, which I think a lot of people who I've listened to have had their team sent through to us has similar sort of things. So I've just gone. I'll go on Wong from the Roosters, who, as you said last week, you can choose probably 5, 6 or so of their forward options really, and just plug one in there. I've chose to go Wong, who is the most expensive one, but I do like his upside. I think he has a lot more tackle break ability, line breaks, and things like that on the edge there for the Roosters. I think Sean Lane's an absolute must for 2024. You just simply have to start with him and Josh Curran for mine. So they're both in my starting team. I'll go on Brendan P. Cura for the Broncos, who will nail down that starting second row spot. Tallis Duncan, I didn't have originally, and I've only just recently brought him in because I've heard more and more rumours starting to heat up that he is nailing down a starting edge spot at Sydney Rabbitohs. If that is the case, he will definitely be starting in my team. He's only 321k. So the last one's Maverick Geyer. I'm not too sure about this one. He is bottom dollar, which is one of the reasons I probably did put him there. But I think with the fact that we have seen Lenu leave the Penrith Panthers, that opens up that bench spot for the forwards. And he sort of got a little bit of a taste, and people were starting to talk about him last year. So I think he might look at maybe being that player they give a go, but who knows there. And for my halfback, I have gone Nico Hines to start with. I think he's once again one of those players that is an absolute must. And I have gone my reserve halfback as Ronald Volkman, which has recently signed with the Dragons, so it should be a Dragons logo there, Supercoach. I don't know about him yet either. If he does get that starting 5'8", I think he's close to a must, but I'm a bit nervous about starting with, and you see my next lot with the 5'8s, just the two sort of cheapies on the bench there for my playmakers. But Jesse, that's the first half of my side. Don't want to ramble too much early on. I'll let you have your shot at this part. I'll let everyone know as well. I still have about 200k in the bank, but the thing I'm finding a bit hard is I just can't find players who I feel like is valuable enough to go up to that next level that I'll need to go. Or I'm just a bit short on going to that extra level that I feel like some of these players should be getting promoted to.
Yeah, I'm having a real hard time finding good cheapies. Really, we were blessed last year with so many really bottom dollar, like basement price, absolute minimum players that were pretty well locked into starting roles to make that coin. But they've all got their positions now, and they've kind of nailed them, and they've gone up, and no one's come to replace them. So it's not as easy to have that cashy gun divide anymore because there really isn't a big pool of good cashies. But again, we're so far off. I think we're 2 months away from having an idea. So I like the first page, to be honest with you, man. Obviously, you know my thoughts on Robson. I think he's great value. I think that 200k saved from Grant's so valuable to spread around. And Brayley's, that's pretty much a given. So the hookers, mine is the exact same. We'll get to that in a minute anyway. But that's pretty well locked in. Haas is probably one of the best options you're going to get, and Flegler too. I feel like Flegler's undervalued. I think he's probably got about 8 to 10 points of value to climb up with his current pricing. So that's a really good option. I will get to my team. He isn't in there, but I probably am going to change that at some point. It's just the early buy kind of hurts a little bit, and then to think, who do I bench to cover him? It's nothing too special either. So for feeder, hopefully, the Dragons are so thin, what I mean? Like, hopefully you think he'd get a run in there at some point or even get on the bench. It's kind of what you're expecting him to do at that price. But that's for the bottom dollar, I think it's probably the better option out of anyone so far without seeing much more come through. And then Fletcher Baker, I suppose, if you just got to plug someone in at 300k, he's pretty good. It's still early days to see where he comes in, but at the moment, that 300 pool is just pick one, I suppose. The second rowers, I've got a bit more money sort of pushed into the second rowers, but everyone has got that same template looking thing going on with Wong as a really good pivot to change on, depending on what his position is. You can just go, okay, I can go from Wong probably to kick out or to Firma if you want to, or down to Bloor if he gets a start. Like, there's so many players in there. Picking 6 of them, you've got Lane is going to be a lock-in, so that's a given. Same as Curran. I don't know how much more upside Curran has to be honest with you, man. I've been thinking about it more and more. I think he goes up, but I don't think he's going to really take off as much as you sort of want him to, compared to what they've got on the bench with him as well, like Kurt Mann and all the other props that are just, who's going to be in there. But
I can see him turning into a consistent sort of bench player, if I'm
yeah,
being honest. I think some of these others will rise in cash and you might be able to play around with a few things. I just think Curry might become one of those players that I really just sort of sit on the bench. And if I do have injuries and I need that person
yeah,
to get me a consistent 50 or something, he might be the man.
yeah. If he can get 50s, it'll be pretty good. I don't like, he's got a little bit of attacking upside, which is nice, but he just tackles hard and he runs hard. So with his price at 420, Mann's a little bit cheaper, depending on what position he gets. Sutton's a bit cheaper. Liam Knight's a bit cheaper, but I don't expect them to be pushing for the lock position. So he's a good pick. Everyone's got him. Even if it flops, you're going to be with the pack anyway. So it's not too much of a concern. But I think he'll probably get a spot, but I don't know if he'll keep it. That's just a trickier one. Piakura will get the spot. He's fine. That's decent value. You know what I mean? Like, there's no one below him that you really want to get in. Duncan as well. I'm seeing just Duncan everywhere, to be honest, as well. So it'll be pretty good. If he gets in that spot, what you'd imagine he replaces Arrow, I suppose. Is that the consensus?
Yeah. I think Arrow might be moving. If it does happen, Arrow would then probably move into a bench forward and come on either at times on the edge to if there's an injury or the like, or in that front row options,
Yeah.
which I think more in our team previews we do either Supercoach or when we do our normal League of Inches crew team previews, we will mention. I think South actually, when you look a bit deeper into it, there is some options there for South City in terms of forwards playing a bit longer minutes, because I don't see there's a massive array of forwards. I think there's a bit of an issue there with the Rabbitohs forwards and depth.
Yeah. It is a little bit, I would say, and you'll see what my team looks like as well when my team comes up. And the reason why I've gone with the players that I have is pretty much that exact reason, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't like they lost. Who did you lose? Jed Cartwright's gone. Moali's still there. I'm not sure. I know they've had a few players leave. I'm not too sure.
Jaime Selle as well. Selle's gone back to the Dragons.
Yeah, exactly. So I haven't seen much come up from them, except if Duncan gets that spot, would be good. Arrow's got experience moving around anyway, so if you're gonna do that swap, it would make the most sense. And then with Maverick Guy, I'm seeing that like Hosking looks like he's on the way out too, so there could be another bench spot that opens up for him. And if Gaia and Liam Henry are both options on those bench spots, and they're both very cheap, they could be very good as well. So, and then obviously, Hosking becomes an option again because he's a beast. So, yeah, Gaia looks like a good shout at the moment with just what I've been seeing, but we'll just have to keep an eye on things, I think, when it comes to setting that second row, because it's such a valuable position, and without spending monster coin on it, you're playing with that mid tier, and there's just so much uncertainty at the moment. And it's just like it's a hard position to come back and go, okay, I've got 6 players here, and only 2 of them are pretty well locks to recover from, and that's kind of why I'm like, ugh. We'll see. Nico Hines. Yeah, sorry.
No, you go, Nico. I forgot about Nico. Was there?
Yeah. So you got Nico and Volkman. So yeah, Nico Hines, man, he's the best player in the game, I suppose, statistically. So they've got that easy run at the beginning, which is nice, and it carries on. There's that by round 5. I was thinking a bit of a play outside of that one, because obviously the argument between Hines and Cleary, the value. Hines has got the easy start. He is a bit more expensive, but he's got a good draw, and he's going to be putting those points out compared to the argument of Cleary injured or PCL injury. He'll probably be fine come beginning, and then the World Cup game, that Club Cup game, and going to Vegas, there's a lot of trouble. So it just makes sense. It makes sense to go with Hines as a safer play. And then obviously consistency with Cleary is the other argument. So Volkman, I was pretty hot on Volkman actually when he got that move. And then the more I think about it, it would be hard for me to see Flanagan not getting the 5'8" role. Hunt's going to play. I mean, like as if you'd think, you'd be like, Dad, give me the spot. You know what I mean? It's, I suppose they've signed him for a reason, but it just makes sense to see. Just I would imagine Flanagan gets the start, so it's one of those sort of tricky. The value is there definitely if he gets the start. You know what I mean? Because he's cheap as, and it may so much team building to having that cheap half that you would have the spot for. So, you know, if you had to, I'm not sure what your next page looks like. If you had a 5'8" that you could put into half and then put Flanagan there, if you needed that cheapie again for that spot, because there's not much hanging around the 300. So, if he gets the start and he gets that play at 238, I think he is, yeah, incredible. But halves are one of those positions too that you do want a bit of value in. So it might be early on it, but I don't mind it, man. I think that looks pretty good.
I've got a pass for me first slide here, guys. I'm wrapped about that, so I might wrap the video up here.
Done.
Here we go. Here's my second side of things. So the back line, the 5'8". I have my other. I think is absolute a must start and hopefully to finish. Dylan Brown, 780k. So he's on the upside or the high side of things. But I just think for him, I think he's the clear cut 5'8" to own. My other player is Aiden Caesar, so that dual once again halfback role, so that might come in handy, especially as I work out what to do. I'm not sold on Volkman. He's one of those players I'm not sold on, and I could easily just switch up Caesar up to the top. And if I don't have Weeks named yet, I know a lot of people do, and that could be someone I do bring straight back in, or I just see what happens as we get closer. As I said, there is a few players here I'm not 100% sure and locked on, so there'll be still a number of changes, no doubt. My back line, I'll try to go a bit of a mixture here with some players who I think will make some money and build up. I've sort of listened to you a little bit there, Jesse, where you've said it's good, especially early on, to try and get those players and really build up the kitty as we go. And I also don't want to get left behind points-wise. So I've got a couple of players who, yep, I have to pay a bit higher for, but I feel like they might be scoring quite well early on, especially with the draws for their respective teams. So I've got Val Holmes, who did some good things for me last year, so I have a bit of a soft spot for him. And I just really like the Cowboys draw, especially early on. I think he should be able to get some really good points there. The Hammer, Tabuai, I've got him in here at the moment. I know a lot of people are probably going to Sarko and thinking that's the Dolphins option, but I don't think a lot of people have forgotten just how good Hammer did start last year. And I think the only reason his price is a bit lower at the moment, because I go back and I think Wayne Bennett was sort of playing around with his positioning towards the end of last season and played him at center a few times. And I think he was playing a little bit injured as well. So I think his points went down a little bit. So I'm hoping we see the Hammer that we saw at the start of last year. And with the back line that the Dolphins have for this season, I think there'll be a lot of points in terms of assists as well and things like that. So, and look at him just sniffing around the ruck and the like, a lot of line breaks. So I'm going all in with the Hammer there at 600k. Taylor May, I think, is perfect coming in and hopefully getting that centre role at Penrith. If he gets that centre role at Penrith, I think he's a must. I think he's one of the first picks in the back line if you're making your Supercoach team at 450k. I think the only way is up for him, and he could easily get up to about that, who knows, 650, even 700 sort of K. And then you either decide if you stay with him all season or you cash out and go someone else. I should have flicked these around and have Savage to start, but I've got Strange. Two Canberra Raiders. I said last week I was nervous having too many of these cheap Canberra Raiders, so I've narrowed it down to two. These are the two I'm going for early on. As I said, it could easily become weeks, depending on what happens with its round one team selections. Jed Cartwright's one of my other cheapy bench players for the Knights. I said last week there was a little bit of news floating around that I was looking at, thinking he might get that early edge spot just to start with while players, even if he doesn't, I think at 238, and if he starts off the bench, he still could be able to get a little bit of points there, but I'll see what happens. And then Iro from the Cronulla Sharks as well with that duel for the fullback. I don't know. The more I think about it, Fitzy didn't give him a chance last year when he easily could have when Talakai was struggling. So I'm not too sure what he's going to do there. I have fingers crossed that he does, because for a Supercoach perspective, it will be absolute gold to have one of these pretty much bottom dollar players starting the year and hopefully getting an extended run. My fullbacks, never thought I'd go for this. I was adamant early on I was not going to go pretty much one of these options. So Ponga's my starting fullback. I've decided to just jump on board after looking a bit more at the night's draw, and I actually don't mind their run. And I think with all the selections, everyone is so not highly priced, but they're all in that sort of price bracket where only for, as you said last week, for like an extra 50 or so odd K, you can get up to Ponga. I'd rather those sorts of points just for that 50K. And as I said, I've still got 200K in the bank, so I do have some players there. Jaden Campbell's my bench, fullback, and I'm not sure. I want to believe, I really, really want to believe Jaden Campbell and the Titans this year have been stung in the past with Titans and believing the hype that I sort of believe I put to myself really and blame my own head that think, oh, their backline looks really good this year, or their forwards got Fafita, Tino, and just seems to never come together. But at the moment, for 456K, if he gets that starting spot, I'll really like his attacking stats and hopefully he can get some points. But one of those players I'm not sure on. So Jesse, fire away.
Yeah, we'll just start at the top there with Dylan Brown. It's a great pick. You know what I mean? But you're buying Dylan Brown at his price. You know what I mean? He will go up in price. I reckon he'll probably average a bit more if you can keep that consistent run going. But you don't want to get left behind with the points either. You know what I mean? And there's such a small pool with the 5/8s, and you look at the fixtures too with like Munster and the inconsistencies with Cody Walker. I probably wouldn't go there anyway. So no one else is a really good option. Eels have a really good run stretch anyway before the buys, and their fixtures look pretty good for a while. So it's one of those set and forgets for a long time with that, and you're very confident in it too. So I think that's a great pick. And then Caesar as well. He's gonna be hitting well above his price point, I think, to begin with, or if not well above, at least he'll be matching it and slightly going up. He can't go down much more, not considering how much of a role he's going to have. So if you move him up to half, you can move Campbell up to 5/8 if he's going to be, if he's going to get that spot too. And then obviously you've got dual fullbacks as well. So there's so much you can move around with, man. You just got to find what's going to be the most profitable at that price, whether it's a 5/8 or a center or a fullback. You've got 200K in the bank. That's insane. That's honestly the team. Actually, if you told me you had 200K in the bank and that team, I'd be like, where have you saved 200? Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's pretty good, man. Honestly, like Val Holmes is a premium pick. He's one of those lock-ins as well. And the Cowboys run looks great. Another one of those plays too. Obviously, Origin's miles away, and you've got everything else. But I think for the now, there's not many better than him at that price for the top dogs at the centers. And the Hammer as well. I see the argument for the Hammer. I feel like he is priced at what he will score. He did have those runs where he was scoring a try every week, and he's not going to do that every week. But you're going to get him for his price, and he's going to average around probably that 60 mark as well. You hope to, which is pretty good. And I don't see a lot of generation in cash up, potentially down, but I think the points for 600 aren't too bad there. And he's dual too, which can be handy as well. But I don't think I don't really like the look of him at fullback. You know what I mean? I think his value holds a lot at the centers. But 600K, you've got a lot of other options too. Got a personal favourite of mine in Karaz. He's a 600, and then you got Alex Johnston as well. Both of them have really good upside. They might not have the floor that Hammerside has, so we'll just have to see there. But it's a good pick. I had him in my teams as well. So Taylor May is a must, I reckon. I don't think there's any contention with him at the centre spot. I think he gets it pretty comfortably. I think he just walks straight into that. And to get into that Panthers backline for 450K is it's incredible. So he'll be in everyone's team, I think. I don't think there's any reason not to, unless you don't want to have too many Panthers players and you've already got eyes on To'o or Isaac Tunga or something at that top dollar, and you don't want to get a pair of them because, if it's going one side or the other, you don't want to miss out on the other one. So that could be the only reason I see anyone not having him, but it's still not a very good reason, I think. So I'd imagine with this team, you'd be playing Savage in your starting lineup.
Yeah, definitely.
You reckon he gets the spot?
That's what I'm not sure. And to be honest with you, I hope it's Chevy Stewart, because if it is, we save 100K Supercoach wise. And there's even more upside than potentially. So in a way, I kind of don't in a selfish Supercoach reasoning. But if he does, I am pretty happy. The only thing I'm worried about, and I said it last week with the Raiders, is I just we all basically predicting that they're not going to have a great season. So the thing that I'm banking on with these guys is to get in some attacking stats. I don't know if that's going to happen because I
Mm,
think they've got pretty average halves. If I'm being honest, their forwards are probably their strong point, but you're not really going to get attacking stats as a back off your forwards, really. So, especially in a super coach sort of way. But yeah, I am nervous. As I said, I don't really know if there's any sort of lots of positions that I could easily see myself changing drastically. A lot of the players I've selected already, it'd probably be this wing and center spot. I can
mm.
see myself staying with maybe 2 out of the 7. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going back to this before round 1 and I've completely changed 5 of them. So, yeah,
Y-
I don't know. I'm just the Canberra Raiders, just I don't know.
Yeah, this spot's changed about 400 times for me. With the teams that I've made up, and I can't seem to nail down a 7 that I'd like. I could probably nail 2 down. I think that I'd probably want to start with, but even still, as far as it goes, May's the only one that's kind of a lock in. But yeah, the Raiders thing's a bit tricky because you've got so many players that are fighting for so few spots, and I would say Savage gets the start, but I wouldn't be surprised if Stewart does. Ricky's a bit funny with these sort of things, so Ethan Strange as well. Like Chris is going to be suspended. It makes sense for Savage to be there, but I'm seeing a bit around the sort of push to have Chris at fullback and get Strange to stay in the centres if Kaya Weeks is going to go there. So it might potentially push Savage out to the wing.
Yeah.
Don't
Well,
know.
I thought that would be the actual case because I know
Yeah,
I've listened to a fair few podcasts and things like that, and I've read a few things the last couple of weeks, and a few people are suggesting Stranger's in the mix for that 5/8 role, but I always assumed he would be going straight into the center role, basically from last year. This is the plan for this year. So yeah, I'm pretty much set on him being a center and just basically being that week in, week out center for the Raiders. That's why I've actually got him in the team. I haven't named him in the hope that he'll get a 5/8 spot because I
yeah.
actually don't think he'll get anywhere near that 5/8 spot. So
I don't think so either. I think Weeks is probably going to have that 5/8 spot. I know. I don't think there's going to be too much around him. He's probably out of the 4 cheapies that you'd have between Stewart, Strange, Savage, and Weeks. I think Weeks is probably the most likely to start every week for the foreseeable future. I think the other 3 are all in contention, but you've got a few others still. Like Nick Kotrick is on his day very, very rarely any good, and he doesn't seem to ever drop out. So if anyone was going to, I'd say he would. Which could put Savage there, Strange in the centers with Tomoko, and then you got Hopewadi too. Like, where does he play?
yeah,
So there's just so many, and I think it's just closer to the day. Really, this is going to be one of those positions that when you find the little duo or trio that get the run, it might be worth just getting them because there are so few cashies in that spot. So it'd be worth it for a short punt anyway. But yeah, it's just hard. You're guessing. You're really guessing every
yeah.
single time for a team, and they're at a good price, so you can build around them. Strange, there's so many players options at 238 with him. Like you got Jed Cartwright, um, who probably gets in. You got Mpapalangi as well. I imagine Jenkins starts on the wing with that side of things. So there's so many swaps that you can have, which is good at least. But I just don't think
I'm just
any of
trying
them.
to bring up their draw quickly to see if their first few games and if there
Just
is a chance we can easily just make some quick cash from him maybe and get rid of him because as I said, I'm just not I'm not sure
they've got
about
a
these Raiders. That's scaring me.
so they start off with the Knights. And they've got the Tigers, the Warriors, and Cronulla. The Tigers being their only home game in that first 4, and then you've got Para, Titans, Broncos, and it keeps going onwards and onwards. So their bye doesn't come up for a while. What is that? Round 10 or 11. So there's a long stretch there where they could get some, consistent runs of points to get that thing. And by the time that bye comes around, there'll be no cashies left anyway. So
Yeah.
if that's the case, it'd be good to get onto a couple of them just for that, having just to flip them when you can. But the fixture starts off pretty okay. I don't think they're going to have too many easy games regardless, because I just think they're going to struggle for the whole year.
Yeah,
But
so do I.
I guess in round 2, it'll be their first game of the year as well. So, I'd imagine that the Knights absolutely blood the Raiders, and then hopefully they come back a little bit, for themselves. So it'll probably be what happens. But yeah, you'll get an idea of who plays in the first game. They're probably who plays in the second game if you wanted any of them. But I wouldn't be trading in for them. So you just got to start with the right couple, I think. So that's that. And then yeah, all those other three on the bench. It's kind of one of those things where you just have to wait and see. Everyone's talking about Euro, people are talking about Cartwright. You've got options to swap back and forth, but you personally have 200k in the bank, so you can really go up a fair bit. And then Ponga, yeah, I saw you come around to Ponga. It makes the most sense.
It does.
It does. It really does. Like he was the best last year in that spot, towards the back half anyway. And
The thing is with it, when we actually sit down and actually think thoroughly through it and put our actual Supercoach hats on, it's like there is players a little bit cheaper than him, but I don't think it's cheap enough to go and to warrant the risk. Like, yeah, okay, I'm going to save myself 100k or something, but I also could risk missing out on 50 to 100 points. Like, it's too big for mine. I think too many of these other players who are under him and in that top probably 3 to 7 bracket that people could be looking at, I just think it's just there's too much unknown there. That the draws as well, they've got a lot of hard draws for a lot of these good teams where you can probably just see what they're doing first up and then maybe move to them mid-season, the like. So I just think, yeah, the more I think about it, Ponga just makes sense. And yeah, somehow I've managed to get him in and have 200k in the bank. So thanks, Supercoach. And you know what, guys, you may as well just end your Supercoach teams now because I'm getting the title. I'm hungry this year. I'm playing Jesse, and I'm coming. I'm coming for you.
That's good. Yeah, you make the point, man. Like he's not that far ahead of everyone else to not get him. You know what I mean? Like you got 40k to Drinkwater, who's a great option. And then, a little bit further down, Tommy Turbo. I've had him in probably 80% of the time in that fullback spot. So he probably at the end of the day, he might be my guy, to be honest. I don't know. I'm still on that Ponga train. I think for the price, you just get him in. You go down 100k to Latrell. That's what saving 100k gets you. So he's one of those players too that I think is probably, at least 10 points maybe underpriced if he gets going again in firing, which puts him right back up to with those guys again. So for that 100k, I think you just sort of lock in Ponga and just know what you get out of him. As long as he keeps going like he ended, man, you're laughing, absolutely laughing.
Yeah.
So I think he'll probably be the most owned fullback as well. When the teams come around, and you can see percentages of everything, I think he'll probably be in everyone's team. Or if not, he'll be in 30% plus sort of numbers. So, and then Jaden Campbell, he's a player that I've had a lot as well. Just trying to work out how to get him into a team if he's going to be in there. You would think he gets the fullback, but then you would think Brimson also gets the fullback. So, who plays 5'8"? Probably, maybe Brimson would. I don't know. It's one of those ones. If he gets the spot, man, he's great value, I think. Really good value.
Before we go into your one, I'll just quickly mention there is one thing I'm really nervous about for my side, and it's the fact that I know last year we all pretty much had it, but the fact that in my fullback, 5'8", and my halfback spot, I don't have a double pairing of pretty much guns, which is something I always like to do. So I'm really nervous about that, and I really want to make that sort of work. And that's what I was saying when I first started my team, that yes, I do have 200k in the bank, but I'm just finding that going up for a lot of these players, I can't get to the players I actually really want. It's like 100k too out of reach and the like. So
yeah,
I'm in the middle of still trying to make things work. As you said, we've still got plenty of time, which is great. But yeah, this is my team, and I hope of my first team basically, and we will see over the next couple of months. We will do this post, and then I'll do a post as round one basically starts, and we'll just see how much it's changed for both of us. Let's get on to yours before you say too much more, because you probably have some of these players. I don't want you to use up all your material on my team. Let's get over to the 2024 Supercoach runner-up, Jesse.
I love it. I've got the same hooker pairing too, and we'll get to that point too. Like I'm not very confident with this being the team that I go with. Obviously, we're still a ways off, and you make the point about too that bench depth. This team doesn't really have a great deal of bench depth. And then you still got 4 chips to put on as well for your bench to make those points. And I just don't have those players in there. So it's going to change. I sort of just have to bite the
Have any
bullet.
money left?
No, not really. I think
I think
I've
you had
got
16. I think you had 16K when I
I've
looked
got
at it.
6. Yeah, it's not enough to do anything with. That's the thing. So I've got to just
Yeah.
I've got to cut down some of the value and just put it on the bench. But you make the point like you've got 200K, and it's almost impossible to go from someone who's 300 to 500 and actually be worth it. Let alone to get 4 people and up them, 50K each to get someone who's viable. That's not happening this year. So it's just going to have to go thin and then get like a small handful of guns and then try and spread the load. But I'm not a big fan of spreading the mid tiers everywhere because you don't really have the top and the bottom, which you want. You just got everything in this flat line, which you don't seem to get a lot of generation money that way. So, yeah, I've got Haas and Totola as my starting front rowers. You had Flegler, so the difference between Flegler and Totola is probably about 40K. I just think with the thinness of the forward pack with the Rabbits, he looks like a good option. I don't think he's going to do any worse than what he's priced at. I just don't think he's going to do too much better than what he's priced at, but I think he'll just do a job. Probably go up a little bit, probably get an increased minute set, but I don't think it'll be massive. But it's not an exciting position to have that second one. I've got Lenu and Hughes on the bench. Lenu, again, is that pivot player that'll either go to some other 300K forward, depending on what looks like going on, or potentially down and just have 2 cheapies if Hughes looks okay. But I'd have to have someone there to replace one of them. It's not going to be a position that I think I go down any further on. I've got a I suppose you could call him a premium because he's quite underpriced, I think, for where he comes in at in the second rows with Cam Murray. And that's really just to have that expensive player to go down on. If I went down to the likes of Curran, who's not
Hang on. Hang
go on.
on. We've got to keep this PG rated. There's a few people out there that's gotten just a bit excited. You mentioned Cam Murray and going down in the same sentence. So calm down, everyone. Just
Oh,
chill. It's early in Jan.
it's true. Yeah, probably one of the most handsome men. um, but yeah, I just think he's good value too. And the same argument with Toller. I just don't see anyone taking minutes off him. And you look at the price, like the scores that he got in the last few seasons of what he ended up averaging. This is probably his lowest for a while, and the Rabbits had their issues. So I don't see it being a consistent drop. Just trying to find his previous averages. Where is he?
And the other thing I think as you find that going into Cam Murray's favour, into a footy perspective, I think Bunnies, because they didn't play well last year and they didn't make the 8, there'll be pressure on all their big guns to fire, and that means playing big minutes, especially their forwards. So someone like Cam Murray, where maybe last year he was getting rested and stuff, I think he'll be getting pushed to play 80 minutes week in, week out.
Yeah, I think so too. And you look at the last, like, go back to 2019. This is a 5-year window for him. He averaged 69, 68, 70, 71, and then 63 last season. So he's proven for the last 5 years that he'll average 70. For that alone, I think, even just for the small price drop to where he would be, he'd be over 700K. You're looking at like Nakora and Olakawatu and all those other guys. So I think his minutes go up. I think his average goes up, definitely. And I think the Rabbits probably have a point to prove. So I like him the most out of that like low 600s bracket. The other Eels guys are in there, Madison and Cartwright, but I just don't see the value compared to him for the potential upside anyway. So I've got him. If things don't look good, I can cash down into a Curran, for example, and bank 200K pretty quickly. So that's kind of the only reason I wanted to have that second rower who was a bit more expensive than everyone else, because everyone else seems to be such a hit and miss at the moment. But I don't think Sean Lane is a problem with anyone, and you had him as well. And then Beau Fermor's the other guy that I think goes straight in. If he goes to the left edge, he's not leaving this team. I think he's going to be in there, but it just happens to see what Desi does. But he's had a good year beforehand, before he got injured. I don't expect him to start off too hot, but for the same price, you've got Kikau, Siwa Wong as well. So these guys that I can just change over to before the deadline comes in. So a lot of them are just placeholders at the moment, I think. Just who looks good closer to the day and where have I got the cash allocated to just do that swap with. That's kind of the mentality I've had. But there's too many.
There is.
And then looking at, there's another guy too that I was thinking about. It was Josh Schuster. And I don't really like to think about Josh Schuster as an option, but he's going to be straight on the edge again. And if he gets the 80
Done the
minutes
same.
like he did when he played edge for that 1 year, he averaged really well. It was when he went to the 5/8 that he just shit the bed. So I think he could be another one that goes straight in there because, again, I don't see him not being an 80-minute edge. So just going off as well, like I was trying to build a team up of players that aren't going to have too much worry about their position. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this guy will be great, but if he gets the spot, you know what I mean? Like that whole if he gets the spot thing is such a pain in the ass to deal with all the time. And I think with Murray, obviously he's locked. Lane will be locked in. I don't think Fermor doesn't get it. I can't imagine he doesn't get it. Piacora's already pretty well locked in at the spot. And then there's just the other two cheapies, Duncan and Fafita, on the bench. And, you know, we've made the same point with your team looking at it. I think if Duncan goes up, he's at a really good price to just go up. And then Fafita, bottom dollar, you know what I mean? There's just, I had to go cheap somewhere. So he looks the most likely to do something at that bottom dollar. But it could change over to Gaia. He's the same price if the Panthers bench frees up for him. And if not, you know, you can just shuffle things around. So there's a lot to move. But at the moment as well, and I'll just go to the halves, I've got Nico as well. I did play around with putting Cleary in there just to get that extra 90k to see what I can do with, but it wasn't enough to go, okay, I can use 90k to the positions just for what the run that Hines will have. But the thing that I was thinking the most likely option will be is when the obviously I'm thinking well ahead too, and I'm just sort of talking out loud with you, but they've got that buy first off. You know what I mean? Like the Sharks have the buy first. So if I was to start with Cleary and just spread that little bit extra cash, run with Cleary up until because the Panthers buy is in round 6. It's the round after the Sharks. So it could be one of those things where you run Cleary for a bit. I wouldn't advise ever trading away from Cleary, but depending on how he looks, trade into Hines for the buy and then run him through for the rest of Origin. Because you're kind of killing two birds that way. It's just going to be well in advance. So I just have to see how the year pans out. But I thought it might not be a bad play, just looking really far ahead. Because you kind of have to sometimes with these big dollar guys. And then, yeah, I got Caesar on the bench. I think, yeah, we know he's probably going to have that good value. So that's the top half. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm not gonna. I can't criticize one of the best to do it last year. So I just love to listen in and know your thoughts and how you go about playing with things. And I think there's like someone like Cam Murray, for instance. To be honest with you, I have not heard really anyone mention having him or starting with him. But hearing your logic of reasons why, it even makes myself just sit back and go, maybe that's the way my 200k goes, because it does make a lot of sense. I didn't go Lenu. I've gone Baker, but the more I think about it, I might switch it because, as you said, like the Dolphins have that early buy, so I need to replace that. And having the thought of having both Broncos as my front rowers, I don't really like. So I personally might change that over to Lenu. The only risk I'll have for you is Fermor, just because he's coming back from that ACL. I know it was an early one, so he has become basically he's gotten the full year to recover, and he's already back. I'm pretty sure doing pretty much full training, I believe. So he's there ready to go. So it's not too much of a risk, but I am looking at him. I'm just going to wait and see for now. I'm going to let him go for about 5 weeks and let him get back into things. And they do have Palacia that's come over from the Broncos, so I don't know if he might play with some edge minutes to start off with and then go into that middle forward while Fermor just gets back to game fitness. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's probably my only one there that I'd be nervous about. But I'm definitely got Fermor in my sights as well. So
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I've got that, 16k at the moment, which could become a lot more if I change things around. But there's a lot of guys in that price point too, and I've made the same point to myself. I'm like, oh, new coach, different site, like different lineup, different ways of play, and is he going to get the most out of him? Depending what side he's going to be on. Obviously, he's come back from ACL. No one seems to ever come back really fresh from an ACL traditionally. So, yeah, there's those points there too. But I just think his upside is great if he gets the spot. But again, I can go down to Wong and Schuster or Bloor or Kickow or any of these other guys at the moment without changing a lot.
Let's get on.
At the moment, obviously, we'll see what happens. Tentative.
Let's go to the back line. Really excited to see your back line because I think you've done some things here.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little bit left field, I think. When I listened back to the pod that we spoke about last week, and I made the point that I don't really like to spend a lot of cash at the centre wing spot, and I don't like to, but I found it so hard picking anyone that wasn't 500k or up. It's a graveyard for everyone, and they're going to be those players that are just not going to. They might average 40, which means that average of 40 is like a 10 and a 70 here and there. So it's just so hot and cold. So I have splashed a little bit, but I don't think it'll be that way come round one. So we'll have to just see. It was more so just where can I divvy the cash out to cash away with. But I've got Dylan Brown as well at 5'8". Yeah, you can't sing his praises enough. If it's not Dylan Brown, it'll be Tommy Dearden, and I'll be banking a lot of cash to. That's my thoughts for the next part of it. I have these players in mind. If it's not this guy, it's this guy, and that other guy is a lot cheaper in those positions. So there's a lot of money spread around. But yeah, it'll be either be Dylan Brown or Tom Dearden, depending on what I go with. And then I've got Kyle Weeks in there, just because I think he's probably the most nailed out of all the cheapies from the Raiders. And that's the only reason. I don't think he has much upside. But last year I had Isaiah Katoa as that second 5'8" spot, and I had him all season, and he had no upside either. So I was fine to live with it. You know, you're not going to play him. You're not even going to put a chip on him. But if he does do well, and he goes up in price, then I'll trade him out for someone. But if he doesn't, then he's that cheap 5'8" spot that I'll just die with. So that's where I think I might go for now. It depends. It depends on what the other teams look like at the moment. But yeah, I'll get to the centers. Like, there's a lot of money in there. I got two 600Ks. I got Carraz and Johnston, and these guys, I think I think Johnston is obviously nailed, and he's pretty well good for 20 plus tries a season. So he's not slowing down. He's going to keep doing that too, and his upside is so high. I had him last year for a long time, and he only rewarded me. I captained him on rare occasions, and he scored massive games. So he never really did me wrong at all last year, and I'm going to run with that a little bit, I think, for it. So I like him as a pick. I also like Tyron Munro as a pick out of the two, and I'm going to have one of them, I think, when it comes down to it. Obviously, Munro's 100k less. I don't know if he gets the spot immediately, and this is I'm not spending 480k to have a bench. A bench,
not yet.
Not starting. You know what I mean? I'm not there yet with it. So if he doesn't look like he's getting in over Tass or Thompson or any of these other guys, it'll probably be Johnston. And I've got Carraz. I love Carraz's effort. You know, he's an effort player. He's good on a watch. I like watching the games, and I like to just see him run, and he just eats the meters up. His base stats are incredible. I don't even still last year they weren't a very good attacking side at all, and he still managed to pump out massive numbers. So he gets tackle busts left, right. You know, he gets his line breaks. He streaks down the line. He gets 200 meters. Like, he's such a fun player to have. And I think at 600, there's not too much else there. Like, you got the hammer too. He was the other one that I was thinking it'll either be Carraz or the hammer. But I just like Carraz more personally, I think. But it could easily change. You've got Val Holmes for your premium Cowboys asset. I have Tulagi as my mid Cowboys asset. I think he'll have a better year than last year. I think the Cowboys will have a better start than last year. It can't be worse. And he's probably the most nailed outside of the other guys on the wings. So, because I don't know what Cop Felt's doing. You know, you've got that other fella that's just coming as well. So there's a lot to look at with that Cowboys team, because there is pretty good value there. But I just think for the winger, Tuolagi's probably the one that'll just either go up. And then for around the price too, like 528. Who was else? For another, less than 10K, you got Tuivasa Sheck, if that really looks like it's going to happen. So I'm still a little bit off going for RTS, I think. So if it does change, if my mind's, if I go the other direction, I'll probably just do that move because it's the closest, or go down from one of the top guys. But And then, yeah, Taylor May's in there too. Obviously, I'm not going to not have him. So getting in that Panthers back line. And then, yeah, I've got Strange and Iro like yourself. We can make the point about them forever. And then I've got Mpapalangi too. And that's really just to have someone cheap again. I see there's a chance that he gets in there, but I don't see him taking it off Jenkins, who's just gone there. So, or you've got an Ari Tuala too. So he's probably third point down. So that's more than likely going to change. But I could go to Jed Cartwright if he looks like getting a spot.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I might even go to Chevy Stewart from that position if he gets that fullback spot too. So there's a lot to change with this team still to come. Like I'm not anywhere near locked in. I've gone with Ponga as well at fullback for that point. I have been thinking about other players just potentially too, because like it's very early to look at the pod side of things, but I do think Pong is going to be the most owned at that highest price point too. But then obviously there's not too many others that I want to get on. Gutherson has a good run. For 90k, I would just get Ponga. That's the thing. Like you're always weighing that up to get against him. You know, like how much is too cheap to get onto someone? And he would have to be in someone would have to be in like Pap territory in price, like in the mid 600s, with that sort of upside to get into the team over him. And I think the only one that is there is actually Pappenhausen himself. So he's the one that I'm watching the most to do something there with. So, you know, if looks like Pap's going to be the one, then I'm going to be changing things around again. But I do have a lot of money held in my centers at the moment in those four.
Yes.
And they are entirely there as a cash down option. I think if I'm going to start with premium price centers, it's going to be those ones. I don't think I will when it comes to it closer to the day. I think one or two might have drop off and I'll go somewhere cheaper, like Bronson Cherry as well. Carraz could go to Bronson Cherry if he gets the spot. Because I like Carraz either at centre or wing, to be honest. And I think he did quite well in the centres. I just don't think he gets a centre spot anymore with Tracy and all those other guys that look like they'll probably be an option for it. So he could be a way down. The Bulldogs start isn't nice either. It's not one of those, you know, informed decisions that I've made where I'm like, he has all of this going for him. It looks like he's going to be great. He's got a lot going against him. I just really like the guy. So that's why he's in the team.
Man Crusher 2024.
He's been a man crush since 2022. So that's easy.
I like your team. I like his back line. It's I'm nervous. Like the thing about the spending that bit more money, I think a lot more people will do that this year because of what we've seen last year in terms of the ceiling that some of these wingers and centers are able to get to now, and some of the scores. Like who would have believed a few years ago we'd be putting captains on our wings and centers, and it was happening more often than not last year because of just that ceiling. If you saw, as you said, like a Johnston playing a bottom 4 team, you'd go, "Yep, done, automatic. See you later." In saying that, he's probably the player I'm probably most nervous about for you. I've just had a look at the South Sydney draw, and I'll just read out the teams that they've got up until about round 12 or something, and it is very, very scary. They got Manly, Broncos, Roosters, the Dogs, Warriors, Sharks. There's a bye in there as well somewhere. Melbourne, Penrith, the Dragons. Then depending on how they are, they got the Cowboys and the Eels as well, who are looking at trying to turn their seasons around. So, and then you're in around Origin territory. So, I'm a little bit nervous. As I said last episode about South, I'm still nervous about South Sydney, how they're going to perform. We do know last year there was issues with the coach and how the players were perceiving him and the like, and in-house sort of fighting. So I'm still a bit nervous. And the thing with Johnston, as you said, you are banking on the tries. So he is a try-scoring whiz. He will find his way over the line. If there is, for some reason, if Cody Walker and Latrell aren't firing, they're not in the mood or whatever, then obviously Johnston's points do dry up quite quickly. So that's the only player I'm nervous for with you, because the rest I actually really like Taulagi. I really think he's got some upside because last year was predicted to have quite a good year. He sort of, I know, so I just had a bit of a meh year. Like I know he played Origin and stuff still. He was a representative player, but he still just for mine had that little bit of a meh year. And especially Supercoach wise, I think it started last year. Everyone was saying, "Oh, this is the guy to pick up," and a lot of people chose him over Val Holmes, similar to what you've done here. And it backfired quite a bit because he just never reached it. So, but I do think the Cowboys just have to get better than last year. They get their roster. When you look, I continue to look at their roster,
Oh,
and
so
it is a very good roster. So that it has to work for them.
yeah, and it's so good too, and it's the only reason I've actually got Tulagi in is just to capitalize on the roster, man.
And the opening draw for him is quite tasty as well.
Yeah, like they've just got a good run, and I didn't want to not have one of them. I thought the tries are going to come in those games, in the starting games, so it's going to be somebody. And he's probably the best one I could afford with the money that I had at the time to put him in. But even still, like he was pretty early in that selection. I thought, if I'm going to bank on someone in the 500s, it's probably him.
Yeah.
Go back to your point with Johnston. I had him for a long time last year, so I expected him to sort of hurt me in those big games too. But I'll run through some of the scores that he had last year against big teams, and you'll be like, "Oh shit, that guy's actually pretty good." So he
Egg on my
played,
face.
yeah, a little bit. So he played the Sharks in the first game. He scored 40 points, so it's like, it's just nothing special. Then he got a 62 against the Panthers, which I'd be happy with, which was the second game. And then he played the Roosters, got 59, so not bad. Manly 37. He played Melbourne, scored 44. So these are teams where he could easily get like a 10. You know what I mean? Like absolutely do nothing, get not involved. So they weren't too bad. Come down a little bit further. They played the Dolphins 56. You expect that. Played Penrith again, scored 90.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, fair enough. He didn't back it up too well against the Broncos, but then he played Melbourne 2 rounds later, scored 76.
Yep.
So
Take
I was
those
like,
scores. Take that.
yeah, you'll take those ones. Scored 83 against the Eels a couple of weeks later. Scored 70 against the Raiders the week after. 107 against the Titans. The Warriors a couple of rounds later scored 66. Scored 82 against the Broncos the week after. Scored 122 a week after that against the Tigers. So he's just got so much upside, and he does it against the big teams, which is why I'm not at all worried about him, to be honest with you.
That's why you are the best.
I was close to it last year. I wouldn't call
Sorry. It probably hurts you actually. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It doesn't hurt too bad, I suppose. It was a good score. Like I had a good run, so I'll see if I can do it again. But it was a lot of this, you know what I mean? Like I did look a little bit at the years previous, and playing a lot of draft, I suppose you have to work around the like pods. You're entirely picking teams off pods when you're playing those draft things too, because the depth is quite thin. And when you find someone like that, like Carraz was one of those players I drafted years ago when he broke out. And I fell in love with him because he was just effort. You know what I mean? And you want to get those points, and you want someone who's going to make those points, not just be lazy when you watch him. Like it's so painful to watch Latrell sometimes, but then he comes out and explodes, and you go, okay, that's the reward for it, but it's hard to watch. Kraz is great to watch. Tuilagi is good to watch. Johnston is great to watch. So I've gone for players that actually have a bit of excitement to them as opposed to just scorers. But he's a good one. He doesn't start off as good as he ends the year as with Johnston. I think when it comes closer to the back half, it's one of those things where he's like, he's very close to the top try scorer of the year sort of thing, and he's trying to push for those late tries. So usually from like round 17 onwards, you see him doing hat tricks, but before that, you might get one a game kind of thing. So
and the good thing for him this year is he's closing in on the all-time try scoring record. So I have no doubt the respect he has in that playing group. We've seen in the past when he's approaching top try scorer for the season, they like to go his side more and more.
Yeah, I think that's the case too. And I think it's going to favour his side more often than not, because obviously you've got Walker there, you've got Latrell who likes to run down the left. So he's going to just naturally gravitate to getting those more tries. I say Munro probably picks up some more of that when they start to go the other way, if he gets the spot there, because he's better than everyone else in that team on the other side. So, and he's playing outside Graham too, which is good. But just gotta see what happens on the right hand. But for the 600s, man, I really like him at that price. I mentioned it last week too. I know not a lot of people are probably going to get on him. Same as Carraz, probably same as Tuilagi as well. So on that side of things, like I do want to start a little bit different. You see a lot of the same team rolling around at the moment, and it's because they're great and their price points. Just got to find a way around it. But yeah, I still think there's a lot to change, but we'll see.
That's team reveal 1 of about 40. So I promise you we won't be doing an episode for each team change we do, because there will be a ton. So but as I said, as a bit of fun, we will have a post from this team that we have revealed, and I'll fast forward all the way to round 1 lockout and see just how much changes we have made. I think it'd be pretty cool to see. But
Over.
before we go, just a few questions have come in. Just going to go through them. First one isn't Supercoach related, so I won't be asking that one. Is Nico and Cleary combination to start possible? So I guess
Yes,
they probably mean,
it
can you
is.
make a side strong enough to have with both of them in there?
You can definitely. I've done it. It doesn't look too bad either. It does cut down a lot of the value outside of it, and it's one of those things too where like you're not adding a bench half. You know what I mean? Like you're not getting your starting lineup and then a good bench player. You're getting your starting lineup. One of those starters is going to sacrifice somewhere, and you're going to have that player in one of those two, which is really nice to have because they're the best two by a mile. But like you can do it quite easily with going from who would you go from? It would have to be Ponga down. I can't see you having an 890k fullback. You probably have to cut down somewhere with Haas as well, I'd imagine, just to cull a little bit down. Maybe go to like a Tarpany or a DeBellin, for example, because the Dragons have no forwards, and I think he probably has like a 70+ minute role in his position. He's another one that I looked at as well, just based off what's likely to
Oh,
happen.
well,
You can go down in a couple, and they're a little bit of a drop, and it's kind of sideways in a way. But is it worth it? You know what I mean? For the grand scheme of like for the overall side of things, like okay, you get Cleary's points and you get Heinz's points, which is just it's nuts. And at some point, you're going to want that. But at the same time, like, is it worth losing? Well, I suppose it really depends on who would be your half otherwise, if not Cleary. You know what I mean? Because I'm just thinking about if you've got money to talk about having those two, you might have a half decent half already. You know what I mean? Like you might even have Moses, who's not far off the mark, and I think he's probably going to be a good
Moses
one.
or a Johnson or something. So
Exactly. Like, and you can look at it too, even when you have Dylan Brown in your team, for example. Like, you look at Brown and Moses together. You can put them hand in hand because they've got the same run. They're in the same team. They play next to each other. Moses kicks, though. You know what I mean? So he might have a little bit more upside where Brown runs the ball a bit better and he's more likely to score a try and all that sort of thing. So their output might be quite similar, except Brown is 90k dearer. You know what I mean? So in a way, you can probably go Brown to Dearden for that value at 5'8", because I just don't like anyone else there. I know I've said Dearden 1,000 times, and people are probably thinking, "Why is this guy in love with Dearden?" But I don't like Burton. I think he's too hot and cold for a very, very close price. Luai it's his last season at Penrith. Whether you want to get onto that or not, it might be okay. And then you just go down, and there's nothing nice.
no thanks.
Adam Dewey would be great if he was actually fit at 5'11". It's not far off what he started last year, but again, he's had 3 ACLs now, so I don't think he's going to be there. There's no one that stands out besides Dearden at that spot. Maybe Ezra Mann, but then the Bulldogs' run doesn't look very nice compared to what the Cowboys' run looks like at the beginning.
Broncos.
Sorry, yeah. What did I say?
You said Bulldogs. There's no
Oh,
signing news, guys. Don't hold us to that one. So Ezra Mann has not signed.
I thought I said sorry. Yeah, so there's that one too. So it just depends, if you think he's fixture proof, but I don't think he is at all. So that's the thing too. Like you go down there, you might be able to go up a bit higher in your halves and get that one too. But again, like you are sacrificing a lot of team points just to get him. Yes. You might be flat. There might be a break even. It might be a 10, 20 point drop overall. But yeah, it looks good on paper. So
next one for us is how much should you worry about early buys? So I'm guessing let's throw early buys into the 1 to probably 5 bracket. I think might be a good way to look at it. And should you take it into consideration too much? Like, should you not pick, say, a Flegler because he has that early buy?
I don't think so. I think like Flegler's a good example actually because what's their buy round 2, isn't it? The Dolphins.
Yes.
It's a very early buy, but it gets it out of the way with, you know what I mean, which is kind of nice, and it gets it out of the way before price changes happen. I wouldn't bank on any Tigers because of that, and that's the reason you didn't see Papali'i in my team this time. Yeah,
you were so set on him as well.
I was, yeah. I'm still not opposed to it, but I just think for 580k for a round 1 buy, it just sucks, man. It hurts so bad. It's so much money. Obviously, the season goes on for another 26 rounds, so it's not a problem. But yeah, I wouldn't bank on a round 1 buy. Luckily, there's the Tigers, and you don't really want any of them. So yes and no. It just depends on what position that player is the buy player. You know what I mean? Like with your Flegler play, like who are you going to put in there? At the moment, you've got 200k. You just fix it. But that's yourself. It's a different situation overall. If I had Flegler in my team, I'd be putting Lenu in to cover him, and I wouldn't be confident in that sort of thing. And go down a bit more, like with that sort of thing in a round 2 buy with them. Obviously, you look at the other teams too, and you make the same comparison with whoever the team that has the buy. But I'll just use the Dolphins as an example. Azarko is probably going to be heavily owned at 780k, or what his price comes in at. You're not going to have someone to cover him, not even close to what his price is worth. So you just got to know when you start with him, you're going to lose the next possible week's massive amount of points because you're not going to have a good cover there. The Hammer, you're going to lose him. You're going to lose anyone that's on Herbie Farnworth. I definitely want to be. So he's one that I've looked at and I thought, oh, the buy, I don't have the center coverage. So
what a sexy man. Jeez.
I want to see Murray, Herbie, and Farlogo just tee it off. Could you imagine?
It's all, we're talking rugby league porn here. This is fantastic. Calm down, viewers. We've just kept you guys excited. If you stayed with us, which you obviously have.
Yeah, we are called League of Inches, so it makes sense.
There was always a little trick to that name. So the other little point I would like to make with this question with the buys is you sort of have hinted towards it, but if you do go for these players, just make sure you do have someone on the bench that can cover it. So you just want to make sure, as I said, like with my example for Flegler, I'm definitely going to be changing and probably putting Lenu in just because I feel like that will get me a little bit more points. It's one of the big reasons I'm very nervous about having Volkman in my halfback role because I know Hines will have that early buy. So I need someone in there. And I think Caesar will at least get me hopefully that 50 or 60 just because he's going to be goal kicking and things like that as well. So hopefully it works there. But anyway, that's my little 2 cents. The last question. Can we verse you two guns this year? So you know what you can do? We're going to have a League of Inches comp many different ways. We're probably going to do an overall, a head-to-head one as well. They're always a little bit of fun. We're also going to be doing a draft one, which we're still trying to work out the way to go. We've got so many people already onto us about that, mates and that the like. So we just got to fill it. We want to do probably a 10-man draft, so it does work out to be quite fun and be able to have some of those good players mixed around as well. So there's definitely going to be ways to versus. And a good thing I'm going to do this year is each week I'm going to put a post up of just how myself and Jesse are going. We'll do a little head-to-head battle to make it fun. So you can always compare your scores against us that way as well. But make sure once it all opens up officially, I will have the comps up, the comp names and stuff. It'll be a first in, first served basis. So I have put questions out there in the past and people have already gotten hold of myself. And if you haven't already and you are interested, DMs are always open. Just send me a message and just say you are interested in whatever comp it may be. Obviously, we're talking about Supercoach, but it even can be fantasy as well. We're going to be doing some fantasy stuff as well. So definitely converse us and put yourself up against the best, which isn't myself. It's Jesse.
See if you can do it again. That's the big test. And see if I can do it twice.
I think that's what is it? Second year syndrome. Let's see if you suffer from it.
Yeah. Well, hope not. But again, it'd
be great for the page if you can go like top 10 run. This would be fantastic.
Oh, could you imagine back to back? Far out. That'd be nuts. Anyway, miles off that so far. So
talk about growing your inches.
You're not wrong.
I think that's all we've got time for. We're done. Thank you once again for listening. As I said, it does go a long way. Just hit that follow, hit that like, and give us a rating as well wherever you're either watching or listening. It does go a massive way, and we promised it. And so I think we've already produced some really great content for 2024 with the few episodes we have produced for both Supercoach and just rugby league in general. And you do not want to miss any episodes this year. Trust me on that one. But thank you guys. Thank you, Jesse, once again. Supercoach has just gotten started, and I feel stressed out already, and we haven't even started.
It's going to be a long year if that's the case now.